Are you feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about how to scale your business sustainably? Do you have big dreams for your business, but you're struggling to turn them into reality? Or maybe you're just tired of sacrificing your health, your well being, time with your family, and your own self care, all in the pursuit of success. Not only is this not sustainable, but it can lead to increased stress and decreased productivity in the long run. Don't let the chaos of running a business hold you back any longer. Join our 12-month Real Women, Real Business Mastery program and start building the business of your dream with clarity and confidence. If you're ready to achieve six-figure plus revenue growth, rediscover your passion for your business, and say goodbye to overwork, then let's chat. Book a free business planning session at aboutshaunalynn.com/plan. Check out the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. I am your host, Shauna Lynn Simon, and today I'm excited to welcome Victoria Gallagher, also known as the Law of Attraction Hypnotist. She's a worldwide leader in hypnotherapy and a best-selling author, and she's got over 20 years of experience specializing in helping business owners to rewire their subconscious for success and shift their money mindset to create sustainable wealth. So if you've ever found yourself undercharging, because I know you have, we all have, or feeling guilty about profit, again, welcome to the club, or knowing that you should scale, but somehow you feel like you're just sabotaging your own success, this conversation is for you. Victoria's going to help us break down what's causing your money blocks and help to give us some practical tools to help to overcome them. So Victoria, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love that intro and I love this topic. So we could have talked about anything today, but this happens to be one of my specialties.
Well, and I think one of the reasons why this topic always intrigues me and why I really wanted to cover it is because I'm constantly having this conversation. I specifically work with predominantly women entrepreneurs, and women find these conversations around money very difficult, very uncomfortable. They don't feel comfortable necessarily even talking to their financial advisor or their spouse about finances. And it becomes something that has become almost taboo. And women have a different perspective on money and have traditionally just accepted the amount of money that we have is the amount of money that we have. And so I think there's a lot of people out there in the space today that are trying to change that. I'm hoping I am one of them. I can tell that you are one of them. And so I really thought this would be a great conversation to have. So let's kind of back up a little bit though, because we talked about how you're called the Law of Attraction Hypnotist. Tell me a little bit about what that means.
So what it basically means, so I started off in this business as a hypnotherapist, but then I started really learning and diving in and talking a lot about the law of attraction, especially more after the movie The Secret came out back in 2006.
Yep. Wow, was it that long ago? Oh my goodness.
It was a long time ago.
Wow.
And, what that movie did, it kind of validated that's like, oh, okay, it kind of created an opening for me to now be able to talk about it a little bit more because it was like my dirty little secret, to be perfectly honest. I made all these recordings and I would talk about your vibration and your energy and how like attracts like and all of these topics I was already talking about, especially on my YouTube channel and all of that. So one day when I was like really trying to figure out like, what is my niche, however you're supposed to pronounce that.
I'm in Canada, so it's always a niche over here.
Right. So one day I was just kind of like figuring all of that out. And I just kind of wanted to distinguish myself as, not just a hypnotist or not just somebody who teaches people about law of attraction and just like combine both of them. And so I use law of attraction principles and discuss the law of attraction a lot in my work, in my coaching, in my, in all of my hypnosis. I base all of it on
Ah.
the fact that, what you focus on expands, essentially.
Right. And the reality is, this isn't a new topic. Even before The Secret came out, this is not a new concept. Tony Robbins has been talking about it for decades, but has framed it in a different way so that people aren't thinking, well, this is just like woo-woo kind of stuff. And I'm sure that's a lot of what you've probably faced over the years is people that don't believe that this is valid even. And I'll admit, I've got I got a healthy level of skepticism when it comes to pretty much anything that might sound a little abstract, let's just say. But I do very much believe in this uh, because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen how it works. I've always been so enthralled and intrigued by the power of our minds. And it does make sense. I mean, I've literally watched people like on a bike who focus on a particular point end up crashing into that because they're telling themselves not to crash into it. Like it's amazing the things that we can do. Like I was running down a hill a couple months ago and I kept saying to myself, watch your feet, don't trip. And what did I do? Well, I tripped, even though I'm watching my feet. So this is what can actually happen. Like if you're focusing on something, giving it the energy. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to ensure that we're giving energy to the right things, to the positive things, because of course our mind would like to go to the car accident and all the terrible things. So when we talk about the law of attraction, just explain a little bit more about what the law of attraction is in kind of in its simplest form. Is this basically what you're saying in terms of like what you think about is what manifests, or how do you normally phrase it when
Yeah,
someone asks?
essentially, your predominant thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors are essentially what's attracting your reality to you. And so and the other part that gets really missed that really is where I specialize is the beliefs. So, whatever you predominantly believe, not just at your conscious level, but at your subconscious level, that is going to be how you're going to act. That's going to, dictate the predominant thoughts that you have. So it's kind of a feedback loop. Whatever you are believing in is what you're focused on, but whatever you focus on is going to reinforce the
Your
beliefs that you
beliefs, right?
have. And so we have to be able to, in order to make this work, we've got to be able to break that up. And it can be a little difficult. And I think that that's what creates all that skepticism out there is because people don't really get that, it's not just about wishing. It's not just about, saying a bunch of affirmations. It's not just about, going to sleep and visualizing your goals or creating vision boards. It is about changing your internal hard wire. And so much of what we believe, we adopted these beliefs before we were even 5 years old. Most of what we believe actually came into our minds, and we just kind of accepted it because we didn't have any conscious filtration system
Right.
until we're, become a little bit into our late teens. We actually start to develop a little bit more of a capacity in our brains to start to question things. And, we weren't questioning money is the root of all evil and all of the money beliefs, or we can't afford that. Oh my God, if I have to hear that sentence, we can't afford it.
Right.
All of these things, they just get into your subconscious mind. And then, of course, whenever you look at something that is a little bit out of your normal budget range, you just automatically are saying, I can't afford that. And we have to break that up, and we've got to change those beliefs in order to grow into the person we're actually meant to become financially in all ways.
And I mean, it's definitely challenging. I did an episode on this just a couple months ago that talked about, visualization and how major athletes have used this for years, and, visualizing what it's going to look like to get the basketball in the basket. And part of this came up from a recent trip that I did to visit my brother and his family out in California. And my nieces were playing softball, and I was listening to the coach saying things like, "You're a hitter, there's a lot of green out there, aim for that." And it was interesting to me because that's so encouraging because they were actually reinforcing an identity and a
Yeah.
belief that, like, you are a hitter. Because if you go up to bat, I mean, I've heard parents in the stands that are like, "Oh, my daughter's up to bat, they're not really the greatest hitter." I'm like, well, if you're saying that at home, that's digging into their subconscious. And, it's difficult for us to break some of these things going forward. So going back to you were talking about we can't afford that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what if people are like, okay, no, but like, Victoria, like, you haven't seen my bank account. Like, I legitimately, like, there's no money in there. What should they be saying instead of saying I can't afford it? Should they
That's
just,
such a
sorry, go ahead.
It's
Yeah.
no, that's such a great question because we do have to have a new phrase. We've got so the old phrase is I can't afford that. The new phrase might be, and it's going to be different for everybody, but like how can I afford that? Because when you
Ooh.
ask a question, your subconscious mind has to. It's a problem solver, and it does this below the surface. So it's not like it's sitting up there like you're actually thinking of all the different ways that you can afford that, but your subconscious mind is actually going to start to solve that problem and it's going to figure that out. When we just cut off the possibility, we cut off the possibility. But when we ask a question that is full of possibilities, there's many different ways. And it's a habit. It's really kind of a
Mm-hmm.
habit to say that. So if we change that habit and we start to ask ourselves the question, we're going to start to tap into our creative mind. And, as a fellow business owner, I'm sure that you've experienced times in business that were not as abundant as other times in business.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
what happens? I just find for me, when I now have a, problem to solve, my mind gets so creative and I start actually looking for different things that I can do in my business. I say, oh, I can create that product, or oh, I can have a
Mm-hmm.
sale, or oh, I can, you just start to tap into a whole new level. But that's what happens for me. I don't, for some people they might go like, well, I guess it's just not gonna, I'm not really cut out to be successful in business, or maybe I need to start thinking about getting a job, or
Right.
something along, they'll start to negative talk. And but I'm telling you, if you just change and tweak a couple of habits and words, your brain is so much more powerful than you can ever imagine. It's going to find ways for you to afford that thing.
This episode of the Real Women, Real Business podcast is brought to you by the Magnetic and Messy podcast. If you're building something big in your life or business and you want to feel good doing it, the Magnetic and Messy podcast is your new go-to. Hosted by Jazzy Lucchini, an entrepreneur, virtual assistant, and VA coach, this podcast is a raw, unfiltered conversation all about navigating life, owning your power, and becoming the version of you who's actually in control of their happiness. From building a life, mindset, and identity that actually feels like you, Jazzy keeps it bold, honest, and actually helpful to help you grow into your best self. Hit play on Magnetic and Messy wherever you get your podcasts.
It's really interesting that you say that. I am definitely someone who's very solution focused. And it's not to say that I haven't caught myself in moments of that negative self-talk, because to your point, like, they've done studies on just how many thoughts we have in a minute,
Yeah.
in seconds, like, it's almost impossible to try to train all of those thoughts. But the little efforts, all those little efforts do compound themselves and can move into bigger, more abundant habits, like you're saying, in terms of kind of rewiring your brain a little bit to look at things and reframe it from a different angle. And I'm definitely very solution focused. I think a lot of that for me does just come from, I often say that entrepreneurship is almost like an addiction, like a gambling habit, where like the just one more kind of thing of like, you can have things can be going terribly wrong in your business from someone on the outside. If they're taking a look at your business, they could be looking at it and saying like, you haven't had any success. And I mean, I can name, so many really popular entrepreneurs who failed more times than they won, but we only know them for the success stories. And they talk about how like, well, it wasn't working and it wasn't working and people are telling me to give up. And, they, no matter how many people were telling them to give up, every day they woke up and they're like, today's going to be the day where we're going to make the sales that we want to make, or, where things are going to turn around. And for me, that's always been very much my mindset, but it almost feels like, like I just need to pull this lever on the slot machine one more time and I'm going to hit the jackpot. But I feel like when things aren't working, I know there's a way to make them work. It's just, I need my brain to figure it out. So I feed my brain the idea of solutions as opposed to just giving up on things. I will give up on something that's not working, of course. Like if this is, okay, this is not working, which means we need to change our strategy. What is my new strategy? But I don't just like wake up every day and be like, oh, things aren't working. All right. I guess I'll just like go about my day and hope something changes. Like, no, you've got to actually train your brain. One of the most powerful books that I've ever read is called The Gap in the Gain. Jim Collins did a great job about talking about exactly this. And so one of the things that I practice in that book is at the end of the day, I write down my 3 wins for the day. And I outline the 3 big things I want to accomplish the next day. And by big things, they don't have to actually be like a big project, but what are the wins that I want to celebrate the following day? And that sets my mind up for success as I'm going to sleep, as opposed to where I used to journal with, here's everything that went great today, but what were my challenges and what were the things that I did wrong? I still have those reflections, but I do them more midday of what are the things that I want to change here to kind of set myself up for success. Because at the end of the day, I really want to focus on those wins. And it's been amazing how that's really changed my whole outlook on things. I wake up more refreshed. I wake up with a different energy. So I really love everything that you're talking about here. You talk about how you help business owners to rewire their subconscious for success. So what does some of this look like in practice? Like, I don't know if you can, is it too much to ask to walk us through like an example of how these limiting beliefs might show up in some business decisions in day-to-day life, aside from the money you can't afford it? We've talked about that. Like, what are some other ways that this shows up in business that we can be paying
Yeah,
attention to?
absolutely. And I just want to also comment on, what you talked about with going to bed and thinking about the 3 things. That's beautiful. And that really, like that's all about the abundance, and it's all about the gratitude thinking. And that's why when you do that, you wake up and you're just feeling so much better. So I love how you compartmentalize, okay, I'm going to take, the middle of the day to course correct, and I'm going to take the end of the day to, plant the seed of abundance and gratitude in your mind. So that's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you. Not to say I'm perfect at it every day, just to be clear.
It's
But
a really great strategy, though.
yes.
And, whether you hit the mark every single day, the fact that you have that as a strategy, I think that's a really, really creative and great strategy. So,
Thank you.
I work based on like kind of a framework, and I feel like there are these manifesting conditions that all work together, and so I will take my entrepreneurs through figuring out where they are weakest. And one of the biggest things, believe it or not, even as an entrepreneur, that people have the biggest is the biggest manifestation block is lack of clarity.
Mm.
So maybe like you realize, like you see that, you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, you want to coach people, you want to, but then, what is it that you really, really want? Like, why do you want that? Exactly, like people, like you alluded to earlier, they're just kind of okay with the status quo of making a certain amount of money, and they're not really too focused on how much money. Well, the problem is if we tell the universe that, like, okay, well, I just want to do this because I just want to change the world and I want to feel good and I want to help other people feel better. Well, all of that stuff, I mean, it's great, but it's not specific and it doesn't give you like a really clear thing to aim. Like, what do you specifically want? And you want to like really write all of that out so that you've got an aim to follow. I want to make X amount of dollars per month in my business. Well, this is why I want to make that. Because, I want to contribute to this cause. I want a swimming pool in my backyard. I want to be able to be an equal contributor in my household. I want to be able to make these, like all of the things that you really want that for. And so getting that clarity to me, that really comes first. It's probably one of the biggest reasons why people don't succeed in business because they just don't know what they really, really want or why. Because once you do know, you can always reverse engineer that. You can always, somebody else has done that before. There are steps that you can take. Now, the steps require you to take action. So that's the other part that I really, really help people with is the taking the action. Now, why don't people take action? They don't take action because they don't believe. If you absolutely knew that if I did X, Y, and Z to get this exact result, then you would just be able to, it's like, okay, if $1 million was sitting across the street and all
Right.
I needed to do was walk across the street and pick up that $1 million, you would do it. But people are like, well, maybe the $1 million isn't really over there. And they second guess as to whether, their dreams are actually possible or not. So if you're sitting there like, well, there's all this risk. I mean, I might get hit by a car or I might fall down or, then they'll focus on all the things that can go wrong along the way rather than just like, well, all I need to do is just walk over there, pick up that bag of $1 million and boom, I've done it. And of course, I'm simplifying it, but I'm
Of
just
course.
trying to illustrate a point that if you really, really believed that your dreams were possible, then you would absolutely take action on it. So that's the biggest thing is the clarity, the confidence, helping people to actually believe that they are capable, that they are worthy, that they don't have to have all these reasons and these excuses as to why they want, to like as soon as people start to tell me about they actually do start to get clear about how much money they want to make, it's almost like they get like, well, because I really want to make a difference in the world. And they justify it with like all these feel good, airy fairy
Altruism. Yeah.
altruism things. And it's like, yeah, you know what? We all want that because we're all connected to something greater than ourselves. We all, at the end of the day, I think we all want everybody to be happy and succeed. And so that's a given. Like,
Sure.
why do you really want it? What, like, and like, be selfish. It's
Yeah.
okay.
I really love everything you're saying here. First of all, even just like you're talking about how it's kind of circular, like your beliefs lead into your actions lead back to your beliefs. And there's there is a cause and effect to all of this. And I think that this is something that often gets misunderstood, is that you can't just think and dream of something and be like, this is what I want, without putting any actual action behind it. And one of the things I talk about often is about getting that clarity of what is it that you're building? Why are you building it? Because until you get that, we call it a vision. There's a lot of different words for it, but vision's kind of the main one. But vision also is one of those abstract things that people are like, I don't know, do I really need vision? But it's one of the main things I work on with my clients, because everything that we do in our business comes back to that, and you will continue to find cracks in the foundation that you're building, and as your business grows, especially if you don't have that clarity. And I love that you're just bringing up one more thing that clarity is needed for, because most of my audience and my clients are what I affectionately call my accidental CEOs, and that they followed more passion than plan. And so they knew that they wanted to do this cool thing, whether it's as an artist or a photographer or an interior designer, but whatever it was, they had this idea that they wanted to somehow monetize a passion that they had, but they didn't look beyond the, I want to do this cool thing for the marketplace, and didn't necessarily build up the, why do I want to do it? How much money do I want to make doing it? They were just like, do you think someone will pay me for this? And then they kind of, move forward with it. So I love that you're talking about the actions for this. And so we're going to dig into this just a little bit more, but we're going to take a really quick break first, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Real Woman, Real Business podcast, where we're just talking about how you can't just think about your beliefs and your, you can change your mindset all you want, but if you don't add actual action behind it, you're not going to see the results. It's not to say that, of course, once you shift your mindset, it is amazing how things change, though, because I know even myself personally, it's interesting when, it's sort of like the whole, I want to buy a red car. And all of a sudden now all I see are red cars. So when you shift your mind to thinking about what it is that you want, all of a sudden it's more open to opportunities. And so you reframe things. Tell us a little bit about how that plays into some of these actions, because the actions are not necessarily like you need to create this massive to-do list and go do this thing. Sometimes it's just a matter of like the action is being open to receiving some of these ideas that might come up.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there, we have this amazing little part of our brain called the reticular activating system, RAS for short. And you brought up Tony Robbins earlier, and he actually talks a lot about this. And it's exactly like you said, as soon as you hone in on this one thing, like, when I decided I wanted to buy, my silver Lexus, it's like, I just saw them everywhere. And the fact of the matter is that they were always everywhere. Right. But now that I shifted my focus, I could actually see that. And it works the exact same way with, with anything, especially in business. Because, what happens is, so this part, we have so much data constantly being thrown at us in a given day. Think of it like all the spam that comes into your inbox, all the, if you're on social media, all the social media that comes through. And if you had to literally pay attention to and focus on every single little bit of data that would come in, you would literally go insane, trying to figure all that out. Like it's not
overload.
Complete overload. So that's what the reticular activating system does, is it's really a helper, and it helps you to filter out everything that's not what you're focused on. Now, here's the rub. Whatever we're focused on, is what so like, if you are constantly, I know in the coaching world and in business, so many people complain about getting clients that don't want to pay their rates. So if you're constantly saying, like, nobody's out there that wants to pay my coaching fee, I only seem to attract people that can't afford it, or people that, right? And so now, if you're complaining about that, just because you're complaining about something doesn't mean you're not focused on it. You're actually focused on it with emotion. And
Right. Yeah.
so, what will happen is you will tend to, it's the same thing like if you're dating and you're trying to, find the man of your dreams or the woman of your dreams, and you're saying, but all the good ones are taken. And I
Yeah.
never ever seem to find, anybody who wants to, take me out for a really nice, they point at all the things that are wrong and all the things that constantly show up. And so because they're constantly thinking about the things that are showing up that they don't want, the reticular activating system, scientifically, it has to, by law, it has to filter out all those other things that are not that.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly. And so that is how we can really train our brains to make it much easier is whenever you find yourself, you catch yourself, you have to catch yourself like, oh, oh, that person is just like, it always happens. This always happens. I always get the person that like has to think about it. Like, oh, let me just think about it, right?
Right.
Or I always, they always have to ask me for a discount or whatever it is that's constantly happening. You have to take a look. Okay, this is what I have been thinking about. And so it requires this consistent, constant flipping of your mind to now think about and hone in on what do I really want. And anytime you find yourself stuck in that repetitive cycle of constantly thinking about what you don't want, you have to just consistently like, okay, what do I want instead? One of the ways that I do this is, we're talking about manifesting a better life. So I always think about like, what am I manifesting right now? Based on what my focus is on, based on my vibe, how am I feeling right now? What kind of actions am I taking? And you kind of have to call yourself out. You kind of have to say like, what am I? What am I? If I am in charge of my life, what am I calling in right now based on
Hmm.
how clear am I? What are the thoughts that I'm having? What am I feeling? What am I imagining that's going to happen? What am I constantly talking about all day long? And whatever you constantly talk about all day long, whatever you're focusing on all day long, whatever your vibe you're in all day long, that is what you're ultimately going to bring about. So we have to catch ourselves at all these little moments where we find ourselves, we're kind of drifting off track. And, and the subconscious mind listens to everything, not just what you want, but whatever and unfortunately, we have been trained throughout society, throughout our whole lives to think negative, to think, and it's actually it's just ingrained in us biologically because back in the caveman days,
Yeah, it
when
was a
we were
survival technique.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're always having to like kind of look over our shoulder. And so that
Yeah.
skepticism, we naturally have that. We're naturally skeptical, but we have to ask ourselves now, am I living back in those those
Right.
times? And we do have to find a way to work around that and to retrain, rewire. That is how we rewire our brains is by it's like we have these well-worn paths in our brains of the way that we currently think. And we've got to create a new well-worn path so it's easier and easier to think that way. And that's where hypnosis and visualization and affirmations really come into play because you can react to the thoughts and the feelings and the actions and the behaviors that you have in that moment when they're happening, and you can say you can decide I'm going to go ahead and remap that or rewire that or rethink that, or you can do it proactively. And so proactively is just over and over and over again, telling yourself, what you do want to happen. Well, I do create wealth in my life. This is how I create it. And you see yourself in receipt of receiving large sums of money. You see yourself at the beginning of your day and how you're setting up your day, and what kind of thoughts you're going to be thinking and what kind of actions you're going to be taking. And once the mind has seen you in that action over and over and over again, it's like, oh, well, this is natural. This is just what I do. Because the imagination doesn't know the difference. I mean, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real. That's why athletes use
Yes.
visualization, is because it
Yes.
actually fires off the muscles in your body to act as if. And it's the same way if you're an entrepreneur and you want to spend your day doing a certain activity. Well, go to bed, at night, like you were doing with your gratitude. Well, go to bed at night. Imagine yourself getting up and doing the workout. Imagine yourself
Yeah.
getting up and clearing your inbox quickly, being productive, being efficient, all the things, that, because so much of this is really practical, but
Right.
it really is practical. It's not magical. And that's where I really, kind of distinguish myself different when it comes to talking about the law of attraction. Like, I'm not thinking like, oh, if I just keep thinking something, that the universe is going to come in and
Right.
grant all my wishes with magical fairy dust. No,
Yes, it's not your fairy godmother here. Yeah.
it's your brain really
Right.
that's doing all this. It's you. But then again, I kind of think that we are all connected. We are all interconnected, and somehow, we are the universe. Like, we have
Sure.
all the stuff inside of us that makes up the universe. We're all the same energy, and so it's practical, not magical.
And I love all of this. There's so many things that I just want to kind of like dig into further. Like one of the things, you talked about was just the neuroscience. And again, I talked about this on an episode a couple of months ago about visualization. And the neuroscience does back this up, that your brain doesn't know the difference between visualizing a win and actually winning. So you're going to activate the same senses and the same reactions in your brain, which is going to encourage you to do more of the things that get you that positive reaction. So there is a lot of science to back this up. But going back to what you were talking about in terms of what you're focusing on, you have to retrain your brain. What kind of kept coming to mind was I've had so many conversations with people where we know what our digital footprint looks like these days. And we know that if we click on a link, we're now going to get a bunch of ads that are similar to that. If we're scrolling on social media and we accidentally stop scrolling and there's a reel that's playing, we're going to see more of that type of reel. And so I've talked to people where this has happened to them, where they're like, oh, I accidentally stopped as I was scrolling and this reel played and now that's all that I'm seeing. And so they're trying to retrain the algorithm to not show them those things anymore. And this is the same sort of thing. So sometimes in your social media feed, you've got to say like, hey, show me less of these, show me more of these other things. And this is what you're doing with your brain, essentially. It's just like hacking the algorithm of like, listen, this is what I want to see more of. This is what I'd like to see less of. Hide those things away and let's focus on the things that we actually want to see. And so spending your energy watching the reel you actually want to watch so that your algorithm picks up on it. So similarly in life, ensuring that we're just recognizing and acknowledging and practicing those thoughts that are moving us in the direction that we actually want to go on.
Exactly. I was literally talking to somebody about that the other day. Like, the law of attraction works very much like social media. And like, so many people are like, I hate Facebook. And it's like, no, no, no. You created your own Facebook feed. Like, so you got to just own it. Like, if,
So true. So true.
every single decision that you made, I'm going to accept this friendship. I'm going to click this. It's
Yes.
created, and that the whole universe on Facebook is exactly how law of attraction works. So you nailed it. Um, and I love the reels. I don't know about you as somebody who has, as a fellow cat lover, but like my
It's
whole
mostly
reels now
cats.
is just nothing but cats.
So I I'm also a runner, so I'm a crazy cat lady and I'm a runner. And so all I get for the most part is anything cat related or running related. And
Yeah.
like I do also get a lot of photography stuff because I love seeing behind the scenes on photography. I have nothing to do with it actually. Like I'm not a photographer by any means. I just really enjoy watching like all the how did they get that shot kind of stuff. So I got a ton of that in my feed, but mostly it's runners and cats, and that makes me pretty happy. So to your point, like I've curated my feed myself, and with even with everything that we've had going on in the world, I made a very conscious effort about a year ago to reduce the amount of news that I consume and
Mm-hmm.
being very selective about the type of news that I consume. And so with that, one of the big things is, especially in Canada, we actually can't see actual news outlets on our Facebook. It's blocked because
Oh,
of a law that was passed a couple years ago or
okay.
a number of years ago now. So if someone in the US posts up a link to a news article, it's literally blocked. We can't see it. Content's not available.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, and so it
It's
was a
actually
big
kind of a good thing, though.
it is. This is the thing. Like I was actually kind of disappointed because I was following like legitimate news sources that like I felt really confident in, the information I was receiving from them. But it was also bombarding my feed that I was constantly being distracted by here's what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
And so now I have a focused effort where I go off of the platform. Of course, I go seek out my own news sources. And so similar to that, though, when things are coming up in my feed that are more opinion pieces because news isn't shared in my feed, anything that I'm getting news related is really someone's interpretation of it.
Yes.
It's not necessarily
Yeah.
coming from, and I'm not looking to spark a debate about reliable journalism here either by any means, but the point is that a source that I generally trust, if it's not coming from there, I'm not looking at it. And that has made my experience online much more calming and much more
Yeah.
enjoyable. But I had to develop that. I had to curate that feed myself to show me the things that I actually want to see. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that other things don't pop up. And that's where I've got to use a little bit of discipline and resistance. Say like, no, I'm going to keep scrolling past this. That's not where I want to spend my energy right now. And being very selective about it.
You just reminded me, like, this is like just a new thing that I'm adopting. And, like I'm at that 5,000 friend level. So, if I want to invite,
Mm-hmm.
more people into I have to get rid of some. And so I've like literally been, well, how can I like filter out, like, how can I get rid of people? And, basically the whole idea, the whole premise is I want to upgrade my friends to
Sure.
be people that like I aspire to be. So and it could be anything. It's like, do you have, the body that I want? Do you have the routines that I want? Do you have the money that I want to make? Are you at the level, are you doing the things? Are you going the places that I want to go to? And so I
Yeah.
want more people that show me what's possible and less people that complain or talk negatively or and it's just so much of the way that our brain works is what we're exposing ourselves to. So if our environment, which maybe it's our social media environment, maybe it's our community, whatever it is, if is it showing you the world that you want to see, or is it
Mm-hmm.
showing you the world that you want to run away from? And, so I believe we create our reality there just as much because what we surround ourselves with. I mean, yeah, there's things that happen, that we don't have any control over. And when those things happen, are we going to live there? Or are we going to live in the new world that we want to, create? And so, I really try to, like you said, I just try to, expose myself to, better, just the world that I want to create, essentially.
And this is so true. I think, oftentimes I've worked with clients, for example, who a lot of their negative or limiting beliefs are coming from a close person in their life.
Hmm.
And they feel like they kind of keep going back to, well, I'm always going to have this in my life Therefore, I'm always going to be stuck in this mindset. There's no way to escape it. It feels very doomsday almost. But to your point, even if you don't feel that physically, like maybe you're in a small town, you're related to everybody there, or you know everyone, you've grown up with them, and you don't align with the same thinking as them, but you don't have the resources to move right now for whatever reason, or maybe there's other reasons why you need to stay where you are geographically. Why can't you open this up online? Like you said, even if it's a matter of whether you're friending them on social media or following them, or maybe it's a matter of just, reading additional books and joining an online community of some sort that's more aligned with the way that you want to think. But I love that you're bringing this up though, because I am just such a firm believer that you are who you surround yourself with. And I don't believe that I would be where I am in life if I had maintained and nurtured some of my old relationships. And it's not because there was anything wrong with those people or those relationships. I simply outgrew them.
Yeah.
And chose to move in a particular direction. And I treasure the time that they spent in my life because they were formative in some way, but they no longer fit. And that's okay with me. And I have unfriended some people on Facebook. I really don't see it as being a negative thing so much as just a growth trajectory. And the reality is that the person I unfriended probably doesn't care to see what I'm posting either. So like, they're not going to be that upset about it. But it's just so true though. I just love how it all comes together. I think that again, going back to, the law of attraction and manifesting, and we hear a lot about the affirmations and living in abundance. And I think what I love is that today you've really provided, here's how this actually applies. Here's how to actually do it. Because I think we see, these 30-second reels on Instagram of someone writing down some affirmations, and then all of a sudden they're jetting off in a private jet. And like, it's not really that simple.
Yeah, it doesn't change as fast as your Facebook algorithm reels changes, unfortunately. And that's one of the things is as you're making this transition from becoming the person who's in alignment with all the life, the business, the relationships, the health, everything that you want, you have to also realize that you still are going to see remnants. You're still going to have days that resemble where you were or where you're transitioning from. And that's what I always like, why is this happening again? Because I thought that I had outgrown that. I thought, and I just look at that, that's just a little remnants of something that still needs to be cleaned up. And so you just accept, okay, that's where I was, and I'm still transitioning into the new vortex, if you will, or the new me, the new promise of who I am becoming. But it is a transition, and you have to just kind of realize, those reminders they're going to pop up. We're going to have
Sure.
bad days. We're going to have bad experiences. We're going to have bad moments. And, it's the meaning that we give to that. If we make it mean something like, oh, I guess I'm just not, ever going to break out of this, or I'm never going to be successful, we can make it mean that. And then if we cling on to that, then we're going to just create more of that. Or we can just say, you know what, that's still, thank you. That's still showing me that there's, a little bit, the subconscious mind is very complex and it doesn't easily forget. And there's a reason for that. It is trying to protect you. Any change that you want to pursue, whether it's, you perceive it as a positive change, subconscious mind doesn't see it that way. The subconscious mind says,
Right.
no, we want to keep everything exactly as it is,
Right.
and because we know what to do with that. That's comfortable. But, if you have an idea in your mind, a glimmer of where you want to go, then that is calling you to become more and change, and you have to change all of the structures that were keeping the old you in place, and create new structures to create the new you, a path to the new you.
And I mean, it's like any habit that we're building, we need to offer ourselves some grace. There are going to be some days where you don't end up getting that workout in like you had planned to. There are some days where, for example, I like to make the bed every day, and sometimes it just doesn't get made. And sometimes I just have to offer myself some grace. I'm not looking at that and saying like, well, I guess I'm just not someone who makes the bed. Like it's not, it doesn't change my entire identity. So with that said, like every habit, it's about making small changes. And I think you've provided some really great tips for everyone here today. But if people are saying like, okay, I want to get started on this,
Yeah.
what are the first couple of steps that they can be taking like today, this week, to get them moving forward in a way that, obviously if they try to do all the things at the same time, they are more likely to not be able to feel successful in doing it because it's just so much and can be a little overwhelming. So what are the first couple of steps maybe that they could be taking today, this week, this month?
So, couple of little plugs I might
Yeah.
mention are, get yourself a copy of Practical Law of Attraction, because that is actually that's my whole curriculum. Like that's everything that I talk about. That is the 8 manifesting conditions, and that's going to help you to understand how to get that clarity, how to change your thinking, how to change your beliefs, how to change your vibe, how to take action, all of it. It's all in that book. And the
So like a
second
user
thing,
manual for law of attraction,
it really
basically.
is. It's, and it's gotten over 1,000 reviews on Amazon. So it's,
Amazing.
and then the other thing is my Believe hypnosis app. And that it has about 70 absolutely free, without a free trial or anything, free sessions in there to help
Oh,
you to
wow.
rewire your mind. So you could get started with that app. There's anywhere from like 5 minutes, 7 minute to, 30-minute sessions, just depending on how much time you have. And it's a really great way to just start small, to rewire your brain. It helps you to create the habit because you get like little rewards, for,
Yeah.
doing it frequently and consistently. But besides the tools that I offer, just what you can do on your own is just number one, make sure that you've got that clarity on where you want to go.
Yeah.
And then I always suggest that people have some kind of a consistent morning routine, or an evening routine, or both, that they can stick with. And, getting into the habit of writing down your dreams and your goals, and just, taking half an hour, not half an hour. You could take a half an hour, that'd be
Sure.
great. But, take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes, and just, write about where I'm going, what I'm going to do today. How am I feeling? How do I want to feel? What do I need to be focused on thinking? What's the number one thing that I can do today, to move the needle forward? And, yeah. And then, I would say that question right there, what is that number one thing? What is the thing that's going to that's the easiest thing for you to do that will actually create the biggest impact,
Mhm.
today? Like, what is that one thing? Is it making a phone call? Is it meditating for 15 minutes? Is it going out and taking that walk? Is it, answering all the, emails that have been stuck in your inbox, holding you back? Whatever it is,
Right.
what is the one thing that I can do today that's going to just make the biggest impact that, I can get done easily?
That is just such practical advice. And ironically, it's actually very much aligned with advice that I give to my clients all the time. In my group coaching program, every Monday we talk about, okay, what is the one thing we're going to do this week? Just one
Yeah.
thing. Like
Yeah.
I don't want a list of your entire to-do list. Don't get me wrong. I understand you've got 1,600 things on the to-do list that you're planning on
Yeah.
getting done this week.
Right.
And I'm sure you'll get to as many as you can. But what is the one thing that if nothing else got done this week, what is the one thing that you're going to focus on? And I think that's just so important. I call it my task triage of like, if things are on fire and you can only get one thing done, it's like if the ship is sinking, what are you going to grab with you? What are you going to actually take with you? And that's that one thing. And I think just, focusing on that sometimes, I think to your point that you mentioned earlier, there's so much noise out there. There's so many things that are being thrown at us on a regular basis that it's so easy to get distracted. But it all comes down to if we can just put our focus onto one thing at a time that's going to make a difference in our business. And I can't wait to download the app because you said it's called Believe.
Yeah, believe hypnosis. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm really
you're gonna
excited
love
to
it.
check it out. I think it's going to be, sounds fantastic. I can't wait to pick up your book as well, because I love everything you've been saying today. Thank you so much for providing, again, such practical tips. And so I understand why you call it the practical law of attraction, because it's exactly what it is. And I think that's exactly what we needed to hear today. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. I've loved this conversation and I, really appreciate all the questions that you had. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll be sure to post those links for any of the resources we talked about here today. Of course, will be in the show notes as always. And I just want to say thank you so much, Victoria, for coming on today. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in to this episode. I hope you've really enjoyed it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, if this episode really resonated with you today, if you really like what we're saying here today, I hope that first of all, you will continue to allow me to join you on your journey and tune in next week. But I also hope you'll take it to that next level and share this episode with a fellow woman entrepreneur who you know could really benefit from hearing this message today. And I think, I don't know about you, but I've got at least a few people that I know I'm going to forward this on to. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.